Hello everybody, I am here for a little bit of an impromptu stream. I kind of decided to throw this together very last minute on my way to work this morning. I've literally just gotten back, so very, very impromptu. About as last minute as I could do it, because I realised that my plan for a weekend stream kind of went out the window a little bit, in that I have now suddenly gained other plans that are going to be happening this weekend, which means that I probably won't be able to stream on the actual weekend, but I will be able to hopefully get a little stream in on Friday after I go and see a wise, knowledgeable individual about well-being. So I thought I'd throw this together and I would jump back to Magic Arena, which I haven't done for a little while, mostly because of the special limited time event being Premier Draft Kaladesh Remastered, which is a fantastic set. It's a nice old one. I haven't done the remastered set, but Kaladesh, the set itself, is very cool. I also thought I would use this opportunity to crack open the stockpile of about 30 packs that I have just sat here. I have also unlocked the Tarkir Dragonstorm Mastery Pass, so when Tarkir Dragonstorm comes out I can continue doing that, because my Mastery Pass so far is what's gotten me all these packs, and I'm only at level 40 out of 61. Or level 41 out of 61, so there's still some time in the next 19 days. But yeah, we'll jump straight in with opening packs. I'll also make sure that my arena volume is existent. I need to turn that up a little bit. There we go, that's not too bad. Okay. We can have a listen to all the different musics. Oh, I do like the Bloomberg music. Okay. So I guess we will start by opening a bunch of Aether Drift cards. We may as well go 10 at a time, as we've got 22 of them. Oh gosh, maybe my volume is a bit too loud. Turn that down again a bit. Cracking packs was incredibly noisy, apparently. Yeah, so we got a bunch more cards. Let's scroll all the way back to all the commons. So all the commons we've got before. A couple of decent lands. The game lands in various colours. We got some good mount, or a good mount card. A bunch more scrap compactors. A common wild card, which is pretty nice. Any standout interesting cards. Another Maximum Overdrive, that's always pretty good. Another common wild card. A couple of guide-like matrices. I passed another one back here. Broken Wings is just really good in the set. Another guide-like matrix. Hazard of the Dunes. It's always a good card. Another common wild card, and we get into the uncommons. We've got a couple of the roads, uncommon wild card, a couple of Hour of Victories, which I didn't have yet, 2 and a black for an enchantment with Start Your Engines. When this enchantment enters, you make a 2/2 black zombie, and at maximum speed, you can spend 1 and a black to sacrifice this enchantment to search your library for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle, and you can only activate that as a sorcery. So it's a 3-drop enchantment that comes in with a 2/2 that does set mechanic, and when you manage to get max speed, which is dealing combat damage 4 times to your opponent on your turn, or making your opponent lose life 4 times during your turn, then it's a demonic shooter, which is pretty nice, but obviously sorcery speed, so it's still pretty good. We also got Haunted Hell Ride, 1 and a black and a blue for an artifact vehicle. It's 3 power, 3 toughness with crew 1, which means you can tap any number of creatures with a total power of 1 or more to make it into a creature, where it then has 3 power and 3 toughness. And whenever you attack, target creature you control gets +1/+0 against death touch until end of turn, and untap it. That's really good actually, because that isn't whenever this attacks, that's whenever a creature you control attacks. If you attack multiple creatures, obviously only one of them gets +1/+0 and death touch. But this doesn't have to be a creature at the time. This could just be a 3-drop artifact that you set aside and go, it just gives a creature death touch for me. Just get some damage through, which is pretty nice. The Transit Mage is always good. Tutors for a 4 or 5-drop artifact. We got a Malt Tender for the first time. Green, 1/1 Insect Druid. Taps to mill a card and taps to exile a card from your graveyard to add 1 mana of any colour. Another uncommon wild card. A Fang Druid Summoner. It has a 3 and a green for a 2/4 Creature Ape Druid with Reach. And whenever this creature enters, you may search your library and or graveyard for a creature card with no abilities. You reveal it and put it into your hand. If you search your library this way, shuffle. So this was put into the set purely for the cycle of legendary creatures that are just vanilla creatures. This is one of them because it's just all flavor text in the box. But this one is an artifact as well, which I guess is maybe an upside, maybe a downside. And we got another Haunted Hell Ride as well, which is pretty nice. And then we've got our rares and mythics. Our first rare, Vinwixt Verbose Host Homunculi. 1 and a blue for a 0/4 legendary creature homunculus. Start your engines. You have no maximum hand size, and when you're at max speed, if you would draw a card, draw 2 instead. Which is pretty nice. Debated building a deck around that, but I don't really know, other than just I draw all my cards. I don't really have a win con for that kind of deck. A Zahur. White and a black for a 3/2 legendary creature zombie cat warrior with Start Your Engines as well. You can sacrifice another creature to surveil 1, which is look at the top card of your library. You can put it back on top or into your graveyard. And at max speed, whenever a non-token creature you control dies, create a tapped 2/2 black zombie creature token. Pretty cool. A Seat of Varma, Master Racer, green and a blue for a legendary creature human rogue, 2 power, 3 toughness. It has Exhaust, which is one of the set mechanics, for X, green, green, blue. Sorry, something being noisy off to the side. There we go. I think I fixed it. Yes, the Exhaust ability, which is an activated ability you can only do once during the game, is X, green, green, blue. Put X +1/+1 counters on Seat of Arm. Then you may have the base power and toughness of each other creature you control become equal to Seat of Armor's power until end of turn. So, say you spend 6 on this, 3 green, green, blue. You put 3 +1/+1 counters on her. making her a 5/6, and then it makes all your other creatures into 5/5s. So, could be really good, but realistically you have to pay at least 6 to get good value out of it. You could always pay less and just hope you're on a really wide board. Like if you paid 4 for this and just put 1+1+1 counter and then made all your creatures into 3/3s, that could be good enough if you've gone wider than your opponent and you just have a lot more creatures, then that could still win you a game. We got a rare wild card, a Boommobile or Boommobile. For 2 red, it is an artifact vehicle, 5 power, 5 toughness, and crew 2. When this vehicle enters, you add 4 mana of any one colour. Spend this mana only to activate abilities. And it also has an exhaust ability X, 2, and a red. This vehicle deals X damage to any target and put a counter on it. Not bad. We've got a Willow Rush Verge, which is always nice. Part of the rare land cycle for this set. It taps for 1 colour and then taps for the other colour if you control a land of the basic land types of the 2 colours. So, worst case scenario, it's an island that isn't typed island. But if you're in a blue-green deck, or a deck that's running blue and green, you probably have other lands that are forests or islands, and so it then just taps for either colour, which is pretty good. There's a second one, Willow Rush Verge again. We've got a Curse Cloth Wrappings for 2 black artifact. Zombies you control get +1/+1, and tap target creature card in your graveyard gains Embalm until end of turn. The Embalm cost is equal to its mana cost. And what Embalm does is you spend the Embalm cost to exile the... Does it exile? Yeah, exile a card with Embalm and pay its Embalm cost. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it's a white zombie in addition to its other types, and you can only Embalm as a sorcery. So, say you had this in the Zahur deck, it would make him a 4/3 as default because he is a zombie and it gives your zombies +1/+1. And then you can tap to give him Embalm, and then you can spend white and a black and exile him from your graveyard to make a token that is a copy of him, which is pretty good. We have a Mythic Wildcard and a Cole Stoke Gearhulk. 1 black, red for an artifact creature construct. 5 power, 4 toughness. Menace, which means it has to be blocked by 2 or more creatures. Death Touch, which means any damage that it deals to creatures kills them. And whenever this creature enters, you put target creature card with mana value 4 or less from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control with a finality counter on it. That creature gains Menace, Death Touch, and Haste. And then at the beginning of the next end step, you exile that creature. And a finality counter is if that creature would die, you exile it instead. So, it's fairly good. It's kind of like a limited time reanimation. Strapped to just a 5/4 Menace, Death Touch for 5. Like the double black, double red is kind of difficult to cast, but I think you can probably do it fairly simply. Back into another 10 packs of Aether Drift. We'll quickly go back through and see if there's anything new. An Adrenaline Jockey, 2 and a red for a 3 power, 3 toughness Minotaur Pilot. Whenever a player casts a spell, if it's not their turn, this creature deals 4 damage to them. There are a bunch of creatures that they've been printing recently in red that do this sort of thing. They made a dinosaur in the Ixalan block that does it. They made... Oh, what was the other one? Nope, I'm blanking on what the other one was. There is another one that does it as well. But then this one also has, whenever you activate an exhaust ability, you put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. So it slowly gets bigger if you are in that deck. We've got a Broadside Barrage. For 1 blue-red, it is an instant. It deals 5 damage to target creature or planeswalker. You draw a card, then discard a card. Which in the Izzet deck for this set, it's all about discarding cards and cycling cards. So, pretty useful. Also just instant speed 5 damage for 3. Seems good. Wicker Folk Indomitable. 3 and a black for a 4 power, 3 toughness artifact creature Scarecrow. You may cast this card from your graveyard by paying 2 life and sacrificing an artifact or a creature card in addition to its other costs. Which actually seems really bad. Oh, you can cast it from your graveyard. That's alright. I guess you replace like a little token creature that you've got with this 4/3 for 4 mana and paying 2 life. And then whenever it dies, you can just do it again if you've got lots of tokens. Not terrible. We've got Sky Crash for 1 and a red, an instant that destroys target artifact, and again it has cycling. So that's made for the blue-red deck for this set, because to cycle you spend the cycling cost, which in this case it is a single red mana, and you may pay the cycling cost, and you may discard this card to draw a card. So the blue-red part is all about discarding cards and drawing cards. We've also got a Brood Heart Engine. For a black and a green, it's an artifact with, at the beginning of your upkeep, you surveil 1. And then for 2 black, green, and tap it, and sacrifice it, you return target creature or vehicle card from your graveyard to the battlefield. And you activate it only as a sorcery. Now I played that in a Phantom draft, and it did very well. I'll just say it surveilled me a bunch of cards and then got me into, I don't know if I opened one in this. I think it was, yeah, it might be an uncommon vehicle. But I haven't opened one in these 10 packs. There's a huge black-green vehicle that's like a 7/7 that gets trample or something. So spending 4 mana and trading this off to pull that back is really good, because it crews for like 1. The other new card we opened was Night Market. It is a land that enters tapped. As it enters, you choose a colour, and then it taps for any mana of that colour, and it also has cycling for 3. So, a decent piece of mana fixing for when you need it. Not the best, but pretty good. We'll then get into the rares. We've got a Howl Squad Heavy. This one is a kind of sought after card for the set, because it goes really well into any goblin deck. 2 and a red. It is a 2 power, 3 toughness creature goblin mercenary. It has start your engines. It gives other goblins you control haste, and at the beginning of your combat you make a 1/1 red goblin token, as you can see here, and that token attacks this combat if able. And then when you hit max speed, this Howl Squad Heavy can tap and add red for each goblin you control. So most goblin decks go really, really wide and put loads of goblins down, and this lets all your goblins attack right away, makes you extra goblins that are kind of forced to attack. So if you're not in a position where you can attack, it's just an extra goblin that kills itself. But some goblin decks want that to happen. And then if you can get damage in, which if you're going wide enough with goblins, which you should be, you're going to be getting damage in. It taps for loads and loads of red mana, which means you just drop every single goblin in your hand onto the field. More goblins. We've got a Draconautic Engineer for 1 and a red. It's an artifact. Not an artifact, a creature goblin artificer. 2 power, 2 toughness. It has 2 exhaust abilities. So each of these it can only do once per game. The first one is red. Other creatures you control gain haste and put a counter on this, a +1/+1 counter on this creature. The second one is 3 and a red. You create a 4/4 flying dinosaur dragon, as you can see on the screen. More goblins. Apparently these are just the goblin packs. Burnout Bastronaut. For red, it is a 1/1 goblin warrior with menace and start your engines. For 2 mana, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn, which is pretty good. And then at max speed, it also gets double strike, which makes it very good. We've got a Perilous Snare, 2 and a white for an artifact, again with start your engines. When this artifact enters, you exile target non-land permanent the opponent controls until this artifact leaves the battlefield. And at max speed, you can tap this artifact to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature or vehicle you control, activate as a sorcery. So it's an Oblivion Ring as an artifact instead of an enchantment that, if you manage to get max speed, just can start putting counters on your stuff, which is pretty good. A second Draconautics Engineer. Count on your luck. It's an enchantment for red, red, red. Pretty difficult to cast if you're in multiple colours, but if you're in, say, the Goblin deck, where you're just doing a bunch of mono red stuff, then turn 3 an enchantment. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn. So it kind of gives you an extra draw, but the first card, effectively you draw 2 cards a turn, but the first card you draw you have to play that turn, because if you don't, it just stays exiled forever. We got a Bloodghast, which is black for a vampire spirit, 2 power, 1 toughness. This creature can't block. This creature has haste as long as an opponent has 10 or less life. And landfall, whenever a land enters under your battlefield, whenever a land you control enters the battlefield, which is what landfall is, you may return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield. So it's a vampire that just turns sideways and never dies, because it just keeps coming back. We've then got a Sunbillow Verge, the red-white rare land for this set. It taps for white, or it taps for red if you have a mountain or a plains. A Gastral Thrill Roller. All the rares from these packs are just red-white except for the Bloodghast. Gastral Thrill Roller, 2 and a red for an artifact vehicle, 4 power, 2 toughness, and crew 2. When it enters, it becomes an artifact creature until end of turn. So it crews itself for the first turn as a 4/2 with trample. Not bad. And 2 and a red, you can discard this card to return. You can discard a card to return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield with a finality counter on it. Activate only as a sorcery. So it's just a big truck that goes zoom and then comes back again later and goes zoom again. And then we have the Last Ride. Very weird card. The Last Ride is a legendary artifact vehicle for black. It is 13 power, 13 toughness, crew 2, which all seems incredibly powerful, right? Well, this is based on a card called Death Shadow, which is also a 1-drop 13 power, 13 toughness but on a creature, but it also has the same text as this, where it gets -X, where X is your life total. So you want to play a deck where you're just paying a load of life to try and get yourself really low to then get a massive Death Shadow and kill someone with it. So it's very much a race to the bottom kind of deck. The good thing about the Last Ride, there's two upsides for the Last Ride over a regular Death Shadow. The downside is that it has to crew 2, but that sort of comes with the upside of you can play it earlier and it won't just immediately die, because an artifact with no power and toughness just sits there. It's only when you crew it to make it into a creature that if you have more than 13 life, it will just kill itself. It will just die. As a state-based action, it will just remove itself from the battlefield. But the second upside helps with that. So the second upside is 2 and a black, pay 2 life, draw a card. So it helps you draw through your deck by reducing your life total, which, if you can do it enough, and draws you enough cards, that will then hopefully get you little creatures that you can crew this with and make it able to attack. So they're weird. I've thought about building a deck with them, but I don't know how it would work. It's a bit of an odd one. Okay, another pack. No new cards here, but we did get an uncommon wild card. And our rare is another red rare, Full Throttle. 4 red for a sorcery. After this main phase, there are 2 additional combat phases. At the beginning of each combat, At the beginning of each combat this turn, you untap all creatures that attacked this turn. So what that does is in your first main phase, I guess you could also do it in your second main phase. There's nothing saying you can't. But if you were to do it in your first main phase, where you would normally go first main phase, pass to combat, attack with a bunch of stuff, go to second main phase, you would cast this. You would then go from your main phase to your first combat, into your second combat, into your regular combat step, into your second main phase. Alternatively, if you were to cast it in your second main phase, you would have your first main phase, your regular combat, your second main phase, a second combat, a third combat, and then your end step. So it's kind of silly. Like, if you don't have a good board state out, it doesn't do anything. But if you're on the advantage, it's very much a win more card. If you're on the advantage and you're at a point where you're like, I could probably just start turning sideways now, and I'll probably win the game from there. Going, okay, I get 2 extra combat steps now. I win the game this turn rather than trying to make good trades with you over the next 3 turns to win the game. But it also costs 6 mana. So you spend most of your mana that turn to be like, I want to guarantee that I win this. It's an odd one. Last pack of Aether Drift. A new goblin. Grease Wrench Goblin is a single red for a Goblin Artificer, 2 power, 1 toughness. It has Exhaust, so again, an ability you can only do once a game. For 2 and a red, you discard up to 2 cards, then draw that many cards, and then put a counter on this creature. A +1/+1 counter. Not bad. 1-drop Goblin, 2/1, pretty good. A way to make itself bigger and also filter through a couple of cards you don't want is nice. And then the rare is Captain Howler, Sea Scourge. So this is what I was talking about when I said that the Is It part of this set wants to do discard and draw. So 2 blue, red for a legendary creature Shark Pirate. It has 5 power, 4 toughness, a ward of pay 2 mana and pay 2 life. So if someone wants to target this, they have to. Their spell costs an extra 2 mana and they have to pay 2 life for it. Otherwise it just gets counterspelled. And then he also has, whenever you discard 1 or more cards, target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn for each card discarded this way. And whenever that creature deals combat damage to a player this turn, you draw a card. So there's 2 ways you can look at this. The first way is you play a big spell that makes you discard your entire hand and draw a new hand. So you cast that with this out and you give a target creature, like, say you had 4 cards left in your hand after casting the spell, gives +8/+0 to target creature. And then when that creature deals combat damage, you will draw a card. Or you do like a lot of little discards that cost not very much. So say you have, there's an enchantment called Scuttle Tide, which is really good in this deck, which is, I think it's like a 2-drop, 1 and a blue, for an enchantment that has 1 discard a card, create a 0/3 crab creature token. So on a turn you could go, okay, I spend 1 mana and discard 1 card. I give this creature +2/+0 and make a crab. And when that creature deals combat damage, it'll draw a card, or I'll draw a card. I then spend 1 mana and discard another card. I now give this crab that I made +2/+0, and when it deals combat damage to a player, I'll draw a card. And I make a new crab. Then I do it again, and then I do it again. And at that point, you've got whatever the original creature was, an extra 2 power, plus 3/2/3 crabs, which if they've got haste, you then just turn sideways with a bunch of creatures, and each one of them that deals damage, you draw a card. Or you could still give +8/+0 to the single creature, because you could just target the creature every time. But this way of doing it, when your creature deals damage, you'll draw 4 cards rather than 1 card. which seems better if you're after the card draw. More versatile to do it in smaller chunks. But if you just had like one creature with trample and you were just like, I need to end the game, spending less mana to just discard your entire hand seems better. So, it's an interesting one. We then move on to Foundation backs. No new commons or uncommons, though there is another Shark Pirate here. Kind of a precursor to the fact that they were making Shark Pirates in the next set. And our rare is Blasphemous Edict. This is a kind of a callback to a commander card called Blasphemous Act, which, for a red, was similar to this but in red. So what Blasphemous Act does is it was a sorcery for, I think it's 8 and a red, and then it costs 1 less for each creature that is on the battlefield. So most of the time you cast it and it just costs a red, which is pretty good. And it makes every single creature on the battlefield take 13 damage. This one, Blasphemous Edict, is kind of a play on that, and also kind of a play on Edict effects, which are effects that make each player sacrifice a creature. Which, in the black deck, you most often want to just be like, well, by killing my own creature, I get benefits. So I'm fine with sacrificing this random creature that I can either bring back, or has a when it dies trigger, or will trigger my other things when it dies. But Blasphemous Edict, specifically, is a sorcery for 3 black. It also has, you may pay black rather than pay this spell's mana cost if there are 13 or more creatures on the battlefield. So if there's more than 13 creatures on the battlefield, this just costs black. If there aren't, it costs 3 black. But it reads, each player sacrifices 13 creatures of their choice. So if people are going much wider, they'll just sacrifice 13 random tokens that they don't really care about. But if people are being a bit more specific, well, they'll probably have less than 13 creatures, so they'll just be sacrificing their entire board state. So, not quite the same. Like, it does a similar job to Blasphemous Act, but Blasphemous Act is designed to kill the go wide board states, whereas Blasphemous Edict is designed to kill the go tall and, like, protect your creatures' board states. Because if they've got 5 creatures that are all massive, that all have hexproof and protection from you as a player or protection from your colours, that's fine, because you're not even targeting the player. You are just saying that every single player has to sacrifice 13 creatures, which means they're the one that has to pick the creatures. So it gets around hexproof, it gets around protection, it gets around even if the player's hexproof, because it's just each player. So it's a very good card. Last pack of Foundations. Oh, we've got a new uncommon, Divine Resilience. For a single white, it is an instant. It also has a kicker. So for 2 white, you get the kicker effect as well as the spell. The spell itself is target creature you control gains indestructible until end of turn. If you kick it, though, any number of target creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. That's pretty good, actually. So it's very much if you need, like, worst case scenario, you're running low on mana and someone goes, I kill your commander, and you go, I spend a white and save it. Or you could try and hold open, like if you're not doing that bad on mana, you hold open 4 mana, someone goes, I board wipe, and you go, all my things are indestructible. So it seems really good. This obviously doesn't beat a Blasphemous Edict, because they go, everyone sacrifices 13 creatures. You go, all my creatures are indestructible, and they go, okay, you still have to sacrifice them though. Like, you still have to choose 13 of them to die. Because indestructible does not get around sacrifice effects. Ooh, and then we have the Leyline Axe. For 4 mana, it is an artifact equipment. It has the leyline ability of if this card is in your opening hand, you may begin with it. You may begin the game with it on the battlefield instead. And it is an equipment with equip 3, and the equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has double strike and trample, which is very good. It's an incredibly good equipment if you can start with it in your opening hand. The most times I play Commander and people are running ley lines, and I do this sometimes, I have ley lines in some of my decks, you end up without it in your starting hand, and you're like, okay, that's fine, I'll just draw it at some point maybe. And then on like turn 1 or 2 you draw it and you're like, this is a very expensive enchantment, or in this case artifact, for the effect that it gives. Like, it's still a good effect, but in this case, do I want to spend 7 mana to give +1/+1 double strike and trample to a creature? There are other equipments that cost like 3 to play and then like 1 to equip that give trample and first strike. Yes, it's not double strike, but most of the time in a Voltron deck, which is a deck that wants to put loads and loads of artifacts or equipments on a creature and go like really tall and then hit, which is what this wants to do. It wants to be on a really tall creature, because then you get the most out of the trample and out of the double strike, in all honesty. They often are just the biggest creature on the battlefield anyway, so the double strike, I guess, is useful, but you might have another equipment on it already giving it double strike, so it's not terrible. But you might fall into that. You draw it on like your first turn and go, oh, I wish I had drawn this in my opening hand. Doesn't stop it being a good equipment. It just is a little bit of a personal feel bad. Okay, we'll move on to Duskmorn. Ooh, we got a couple of the 13 life lands. We've got which, in all honesty, these should have really indicated a new Death Shadow coming, because they are lands that enter tapped unless a player has 13 or less life, which if you're playing the Last Ride deck, where you want to have less than 13 life, these are good lands. We have a Vanish from Sight for 3 and a blue, an instant with target non-land permanent's owner puts it on their choice of the top or bottom of their library, and then you surveil one. It's a bit of a weird one, like, because they can just put it back on top, but if it's something that they actually don't want at the time, they can just throw it to the bottom. But it's effectively the same as bouncing it to their hand, kind of. Then we have an attack in the box, a 3 mana artifact creature toy, which toy was a new creature type for this set. 2 power, 4 toughness. Whenever this creature attacks, you may have it get +4/+0 until end turn. If you do, you sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. So it becomes a 6/4 for a turn and then dies. It's a weird one. Aha! Another ley line. I actually like this ley line because what it does is a very Commander-specific mechanic that people just build decks around. So, Leyline of Transformation for 2 blue. It has the Leyline ability if you can start with it on the battlefield if it's in your opening hand. And as this enchantment enters, you choose a creature type. Creatures you control are the chosen type in addition to their other types, and then the same is true for creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield. So there's a few cards like this, which are Maskwood Nexus, which is an artifact that does a similar thing but can also make shapeshifters. Arcane Adaptation, which is the old, not the oldest, but the old version of this. Xenograph, which is the oldest version of this effect, but doesn't make the creature spells you control and creature cards you own that aren't on the battlefield also the type. So the closest this is to, because Maskwood Nexus, Xenograph is an enchantment. Same cost as this, I think. Where when it enters you choose a creature type, and creatures you control are that type. They then printed Arcane Adaptation, that is 3 in a blue for an enchantment, that when it enters, you choose a creature type, and creatures you control, creature spells you cast, and creature cards and creature cards you earn onto the battlefield are all the creature type. Oh, I've been talking a lot. So it was an upgrade from Xenograft, which was pretty good at the time. Original Ixalan block. People looked at it and went, "Oh, it's a second Xenograft. That's really cool." Ooh, another one that I missed is also Conspiracy, which is a black enchantment for I think 2 black, maybe 3 black, that does the same as Xenograft. But yeah, Arcane Adaptation came out, and a lot of people went, "Ooh, it's a better Xenograft. It does the similar sort of thing, but it also cares about stuff not on the battlefield. So it lets your things that tutor for a specific creature type find whatever you want as long as you've picked that creature type for the Arcane Adaptation." It brought about a slight rise in decks like Lords, where you have a bunch of cards that just care about a specific creature type. So like there's a merfolk that gives all your merfolk +1/+1 and island walk. There's a goblin that gives all your goblins +1/+1 and haste. There's a zombie that gives all your zombies first strike or death touch and +1/+0 or something like that. And you just threw all of these in together, and none of them synergized. But you then went, okay, but then I play this ley line or I play the Xenograft and pick merfolk, and then I play Conspiracy and pick goblin, and then I play Arcane Adaptation and pick zombie. So now my merfolk lord, that was just a 2/2 merfolk, that was giving my other my other merfolk +1/+1 island walk, now is a 4/3 death touch haste creature, because it's also a zombie and it's also a goblin. My goblin creature that was just a 1/1 that gave my other creatures, my other goblins, +1/+1 and haste, is now a 2/2 with island walk and death touch. And then my zombie that was like a 2/3 that gave +1/+0 and death touch is now a 4/5 with haste and island walk. So it made a lot of wacky like interactions between different creature lords into like, okay, well this lord now has these abilities that it really shouldn't have, because there's no reason why it would ever have these abilities. But it now does, because it's lorded by the lords that don't care about it, which is just weird and silly. And then obviously they made this, which does the same thing as Arcane Adaptation. Or, sorry, before they made this, they then made Maskwood Nexus, which is a 4-drop artifact that makes all of your... It's like this, but you don't pick a creature type. It just makes all your creatures every creature type, which then really helped the Lords deck, because you could just play a Maskwood Nexus and go, cool, now all of them are everything, and I don't have to play this 4 or 5 different versions of the same thing and pick different creature types and make sure that I've picked all the right ones for all the things that are coming up. I just play Maskwood Nexus and it goes, yep, I check all your boxes, everything is everything, all the lords are interacting, great. But then they've made this, which means it can start on the battlefield. So you can look at your opening hand and go, ooh, I've got a Goblin Lord, so this will come into the battlefield and name Goblin, so that when this Goblin Lord comes down, he gives the effect to all my other creatures as they enter, because they'll also be goblins. So it's pretty cool. I like it. And I love the Lord deck. It's very silly. Now that I've got this, if I get a Maskwood Nexus, I would be tempted to try building the Lord deck on Arena. I don't know how well it would work, because obviously some of the older versions of this card aren't on Arena. Like Conspiracy, I think just isn't on Arena. I would be surprised if Xenograft is. Arcane Adaptation might not even be. It was an original Ixalan block, and while that is on Arena, it would have to be a remastered set. And Maskwood Nexus was from Kaldheim, which is also on Arena, but again, I would have to wait for it to come back round or spend wildcards on it. And then I don't even know what lords are on the in Arena. There's probably a bunch. But I'm one card closer to building lords on here, I guess. Is a way to look at it. And now that I'm cracking all these packs, I am getting a bunch of wild cards. No new cards in this pack, but we get a Toby, who's not a lord. Kind of is, but cares about tokens more than a specific creature type. 2 and a white for a legendary creature human wizard. 1 power, 1 toughness. When Toby enters, you make a 4/4 white beast token. With this token can't attack or block alone. And as long as you control 4 or more creature tokens, your creature tokens have flying. So, kind of nice. Kind of silly. We then go on to the Bloomburrow packs. This might have a bunch of Lord effects in it. Because this was a set that cared about the types of creatures and made it so that they all interacted with themselves. Unfortunately, none of these are lords, but we do have Early Winter, which is, there's a poor cold mouse on it. Not Early Winter. For 4 and a black, it is an instant with choose 1. You exile target creature, or target opponent exiles an enchantment they control. So either you pick a creature, or they pick an enchantment. Most of the time they only have 1 enchantment, so you just hit that if you want to. But if they have multiples, maybe not as useful. Ooh, and then it's me, Mabel. Heir of Cragflame. We've got a commander deck with her. People will know her. She's amazing. She makes a sword. She is also a lord. So this is what I'm talking about. Other mice you control get +1/+1, and then she just comes in with a sword. So if you had the ley line, obviously it can't go in her deck because she's a red-white card and it's a blue card. But if you had the ley line and picked mice, then all of your creatures get +1/+1. Not just your mice. Did we get any lords in this pack? We've got a Daggerfang duo, which is a rat squirrel. For 2 and a black, it's a 3 power, 2 toughness, death touch. With when this creature enters, you may mill 2 cards. We also got another rat, a rat rogue, with 1 for 1 and a blue. It is a 1 power, 3 toughness, and threshold for 1 and a blue. Put a +1/+1 counter on this creature, and then draw a card. And threshold is that you can only activate this ability if you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard. And then you can also only do this ability once. Don't seem to be any Lord effects. No, we've got a card that helps out the tactic of the frogs, and a card that helps out the tactic of the bats. But they are not Lord effects in that they do not name the creature type specifically. Ooh! Raccoon Warrior. Again, a card that cares about the mechanic of the raccoons, but does not specifically name them. But Muera, Trash Tactician, for 1, a red and a green. She's a legendary creature, Raccoon Warrior. 2 power, 4 toughness. And at the beginning of your first main phase, you add red or green. I guess she kind of does. You add red or green for each raccoon you control. So again, if you had a deck with the transformation and her, you obviously can't run it in her deck, but you can name Raccoon, and then she can come down and just be like, have a bunch of mana, because all your creatures are raccoons, whether they say that or not on them. And whenever you expend 4 mana, you gain 3 life. Whenever you expend 4, you gain 3 life. Whenever you expend 8, you exile the top 2 cards of your library, and then turn to turn you may play those cards. So expend is the mechanic where it counts the amount of mana you spend to cast spells. And when you cast your X number of mana, so in this case, when you've when you've spent your 4th mana, you gain 3 life. When you've spent your 8th mana, you exile the top 2 cards. Pretty cool. We then move on to Outlaws of Thunder Junction. Ooh, we got Tyrant Scorn for blue and a black. It is an instant with destroy. You choose one. You either destroy target creature with mana value 3 or less, or return target creature to its owner's hand. So if you're trying to get rid of a creature with value 4 or more, you have to pick the bounce. But then they would then have to recast it, and it costs more than 4 or more mana. So pretty good. And if it's less, you can just straight kill it, which is pretty nice. Ooh, and then a Terror of the Peaks. A dragon, which is great for the next set coming out. Oh, I clearly picked the wrong drink for this stream. I've got a very citrusy drink and it's just making me cough more. I might have to go and grab some water after this pack. Or after I've finished opening packs, I'll run and grab a water, and then we can draft. But yeah. Terror of the Peaks. 3 red for a creature dragon, 5 power, 4 toughness. It has flying, as many dragons do. Spells your opponents cast that target this creature cost an additional 3 life to cast. So it's got ward pay 3 life, effectively. Except instead of actually just countering the spell if they don't pay the life, they just can't cast the spell targeting this if they don't pay the 3 life. And then it also has, whenever another creature you control enters, this creature deals damage equal to that creature's power to any target. Which is gross. Terror of the Peaks is a really good card. It's definitely getting in my Jolene deck, which just has a bunch of big creatures in it. So you play this, you then play like the 7/7 worm, and this goes, okay, I 7 that thing. I deal 7 damage to that thing or to my opponent. It's just great. We've got a Repulse. 2 and a blue for an instant. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Draw a card. It's a good spell. It's a good spell. There's nothing really I can say about that. It's just a good spell. Another dragon. 2 red for a 7 power, 7 toughness creature scorpion dragon. It has flying, it has trample, it has plot, 2 and a red. And plot is you can spend 2 and a red to exile it from your hand. And then as a sorcery on a future turn, you can cast it without paying its mana cost. And this creature also gets -1/-1 for each card in your hand. So if you've got a full grip, it just comes in and dies because it gets -7/-7. But if you're dropping a bunch of really fast spells, you might just be out of cards in your hand. And if you're plotting a bunch of cards, you might just be out of cards in your hand. So it's probably then just a 7/7 flying trample creature for 4. Or for nothing if you've plotted it a previous turn, which is pretty good. The downside being that if at any point you do draw up to 7, it does just die. And that it gets, like, on average, you might have like 3 cards in hand, in which case it's a 4/4 for 4. Which is alright. Not amazing, but not terrible. And for the last pack, a couple of new cards. We've got a Desert's Dew. For 1 and a black, it is an instant with target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. It gets an additional -1/-1 until end of turn for each desert you control. So, this targeting that dragon, if they've got 3 cards in hand and you're like, ooh, I've got a couple of deserts, I'll give it -4/-4 because it's only a 4/4. just a kill spell for 2. Seems good. Especially if you're in the desert deck, just seems really useful. Intimidation Campaign. This is another card where it's very reminiscent of previous cards they've printed. Like they did something similar to this in the Ravnica Allegiance set. I want to say it was Ravnica Allegiance. Where it was also an enchantment for 1 blue-black. It also had an ETB and also cared about, I think it cared about surveilling. And it like bounced your hand and then did it again. And this one, similarly, 1 blue-black, enchantment. When this enters, each opponent loses 1 life, you gain 1 life, and you draw a card. And then whenever you commit a crime, which is targeting your opponent, targeting a permanent your opponent controls, or targeting a card in their graveyard, that counts as a crime or committing a crime. And so whenever you commit a crime, you may return this to your return this enchantment to its owner's hand. So you bounce it back to your hand, and then you can replay it and do the drain and the card draw again. And we also have a Ride Down, red, white for an instant. Destroy target blocking creature. Creatures that were blocked by that creature this turn gain trample until end of turn. It's a very good combat trick. Yeah, it's just a very good combat trick. If you swing out with a creature and they're like, I blocked with my biggest creature, you're just like, cool. It dies and my creature now just hits you anyway, because there's now nothing blocking it and it counts as having trample. So it still just kills you. Step Between Worlds. 3 blue. It also has plot for 4 blue. It's a sorcery. Weird that the plot costs more than the regular spell, but there's clearly reason for that. Each player may shuffle their hand and graveyard into their library. Each player who does draws 7 cards. Exile Step Between Worlds. Weird. I guess the plot costs more because if you plot this and put it in the side, you can then take your next turn being like, I spend all my mana to cast a bunch of stuff. I cast a load of spells that then all go to my graveyard, and then I cast this for free, putting my entire graveyard back into my library, and then drawing another full hand of cards that I then can keep casting because I've still got mana spare. Whereas if you cast this default, you have to spend 5 of your mana on this already. So you've probably run out of mana by the time you draw 7 cards, unless you're doing this first. So, decent card. So those were all the packs that I've got. We've managed to get through them in the short space of 1 hour. So we've got the special limited event, which is a Premier Draft Kaladesh Remastered. I do have 1 draft token, so I will definitely be using that for the first one. I've also got enough gems and coins for 3 more drafts afterwards. You select 1 card at a time from rotating draft packs. The card will be added to your collection, and then you'll use them plus basic lands to build a 40-card deck, play games and receive prizes based on how many games you win. So we've got best to 3 losses, and for 5 wins we earn enough to draft again. So if we can get 5 wins we can draft again, but we also have a couple of attempts, shall we say. And it's a player draft, so it's a timed draft with 7 other players. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a momentary break just to go and